Welcome to my shootout of virtual analog Model Ds. There's so many on the market now, I thought it'd be quite interesting to see which ones actually emulate the hardware best. I've got a hardware one in the studio, so this isn't about looking at the different facilities like effects, value for money, anything like that. This is just which one sounds closest to the one I've got on the desk next to me. So let's begin by looking at a straight sawtooth, filter completely open with no envelopes in play. Here's the Arturia MiniV3. The Diva, Reactor, Minimonsta, and the Legend. You may notice that this is labelled as Legend Live, and that's because I'm using a demo version that doesn't have any automation, which I've been using to get things to sound similar. But on this test here, we're just using a standard sawtooth with an open filter and no envelopes, so each of these should really sound the same if they sound like a Model D. And they don't. But they do have different closenesses. What I listen to is like a low end, it's sort of like a sine or a triangle, or maybe describe it as a hoot, followed by a mid-range formatty sound, and then the top end a sort of buzziness. So yeah, three elements to the sound really that I listen to. So the Minimonsta's got a bit of extra bass, it sounds like, and the Legend, is that a bit fizzier, would you say? Monark's close. Slightly different format aspects to the sound. Diva's got a darker tone. And the MiniV sounds close. What's really odd here is that listening back to this, the Legend sounds really close, but in previous tests I've done, and while I've been editing this and listening on various headphones and things, the Legend sounded further from the others, so it just shows how much the headphones and your monitoring system really makes a difference to the sounds. Let's now listen to some longer samples, and keep your eye on the frequency analysis in the bottom right hand corner. So like that, they do sound all distinct. So what I'll do now is I'll turn them off and play them all at once so you can see the frequencies. So you can see the plots here. The Model D goes up to the highest frequency. The Diva, as you could hear, was the lowest. Sorry, as they jig around a bit, that's just where the samples are looping. Monarch's got a peculiar looking plot there, where the troughs don't go as deep as the others. And on the top end there, the Model D and the Legend look quite similar. So does the Mini 3. The Mini V3 is the only one that's sort of, what's the word, wavering around like the Model D does. But yeah, the Monarch's really, really odd there. Just as a quick aside, after listening to those, I think it's worth showing that the levels are all very, very similar here. They're all at -5.0, except for the Arturia, which is -4.9. So as I do these things, I do try and meter them, I do try and get everything spot on, but as you start changing parameters, they do go out a little bit, so bear that in mind. Now, I don't know about you, but I really didn't get into synths to play long notes on Sawtooth Waves. So let's have a listen to something a little bit more musical, just to put it into context. I think what's really interesting is that the soft synths really do sound like they're just playing a sample and you're cutting the sample off, whereas the Model D has that sort of squelchiness in the tone. Now from that, Legend sound good, Monarch sounds good, I think the Diva sounds a little bit dull, G Media sounds really low, although the volumes are the same, so let's have another listen to that. They all stack up really well doing that, I think. So the Diva definitely sounds a bit darker, the Mini V sounds a bit fizzier. Here's Monarch. Sounds a bit harsher maybe. Minimonsta sounds a bit brighter. And let's have a listen to that Legend again. Yep, I'm really impressed with Legend there, particularly as when I was playing the longer notes I didn't think it sounded as much like the Model D, and now I'm playing the shorter notes, so something that's more musical really. It sounded more like the Model D, although none of them particularly do because of that squelchiness again. To investigate that a little further, I'm going to add some envelope to the note, so some release. So I'm listening to the release portion, and even though the envelope amounts on the filter are all turned to 0, does the filter affect how the note decays? That's the hardware, and I think I can hear the filter closing as the note's released. It's a bit harsh. Nice. If not a bit duller. That's good. That's a bit harsh again. Yep, so Legend's taken me by surprise there, so I'm placing Legend first and I'm putting the Monark second. I can't really separate the MiniV and the Minimonsta, and I've put Diva in 5th place because I'm not sure if it's the filter or if it's the oscillators themselves that are giving it that darker tone. Okay, round 2, let's have a look at a straight up square wave on each of them. Wow, the Diva's got a completely different tone, and I think this is something to do with the various revisions that each of them have been modelled on. Because that's completely different. The Legend models 2 revisions, and that was the later revision. So look at the harmonic distribution. This revision's got an ideal harmonic shape. And this one doesn't. It's got weaker harmonics between the stronger ones, giving a completely different tone. Legend's really close as well. So let's take a quick look at the frequency analysis of each of these. The Minimonsta, the MiniV3 looks like the Model D, and the Legend's pretty close. Monark again's missing those deep troughs, but the Minimonsta and the Diva, they seem slightly different to me. The Diva has those incidental harmonics dropping down from left to right, and the Minimonsta has them going up, but they look almost too ideal to me. But it's not what they look like, it's what they sound like. So let's have a listen to it again in the musical context. Yep, I think they all sound really good actually. The Minimonsta's a bit confusing because although it sounds the quietest, on the meters it actually looks like it's the loudest. I'm going to discount Diva because I think it's the wrong model. That sounds good. Reactor's a bit harsher maybe. Minimonsta's got a good tone, but I still don't understand why the volumes are so different. Legend and MiniV come in 1st place for that one for me. Minimonsta would be up there as well, but the levels are sort of are knocking it down a position, so that's knocked it down into 3rd place along with Monark. And Diva, I think it's based on a later revision, so it's a bit of an unfair comparison really. This is the final oscillator round, round 3. We'll take a look at the triangle. Bit harsh on the top end with the MiniV maybe. So that's got a real feel of this. Maybe not. Yeah, it does, it just hasn't got that top end. I'm really impressed with Minimonsta's waveforms. I just can't get my head around the levels, why they're sort of so low and high. Look how low this one is here. And Legend's really stacking up to be a front runner here. Yeah, Legend's got a clear lead at the front now, I think. So let's start to challenge them and give them a second oscillator to play with. Again, just using a simple sawtooth on both oscillators, and the second's pitched up about 1/3 of a semitone, up 30%. I think they all cope with that really well. Diva's the one that's least like it, and I think that's the darkness of the tone. So again, I think it's Legend for me on this one. It's one I only heard of a couple of weeks ago when I started looking out for things to put into this review. Okay, round 5, let's start looking at the filters. It's what the Model D is famous for after all. What you notice when you're trying to match up two synths is that the character really shines through when you're tweaking the cutoff and the resonance. And as you're turning the resonance, for example, it's a bit like changing an EQ and you're changing the Q value on one of the ranges, and you're never going to get it to sound exactly the same as something else. If yours is open, your EQ is open and someone else is closed, for example, the formant in there sounds a bit different, and you're never going to match them up. So the filters really shine out once you start playing with them, and they really do bring out the character of the synth. So let's take a look at the cutoff first. What I really like here is the way the beat frequency sort of makes a grinding, crunching sound as the two oscillators phase in and out. I really like that. It really dictates the character of the synth. That doesn't really do it. Now we've turned the filter down and we've lost those high frequencies. The Diva's really coming into its own. It really sounds like the Moog, and it's got those real nice grindy, crunchy sounds. Unfortunately, I think that sounds awful. When I did this, I was playing it on different octaves and different keys up and down the keyboard, and I could hear this funny noise, and I thought it was a distortion, and it's not. It's actually the Monarch's attempt at making that grindy sound. Yeah, really nasty. Not really a grinding, more of a buzzing. Oh, it's like a zingy zig zig zig. Compare that to the Diva. And to the Model D. The cutoffs are all slightly different, but we're listening to the oscillators here. Later on I'll put them all on 1 kHz exactly to zone in on the differences of each of the filters. Anyway, back to the Minimonsta. That sounds nice, but the crunching isn't there. Yep, it's there, it sounds good. The tempo with the beat frequencies are slightly different, and that's because it's difficult to get them matched exactly. But what I've done is I've detuned the second oscillator up from the first by about 1/3 of a semitone. So quickly one more run through. So you can hear the buzzing in there. And it's in there. And in here, it sounds like someone undoing the fly. Well, I'm getting really used to saying the Legend sounds good on that. The Diva sounds good as well. And I'm just wondering if they've modelled a synth that doesn't have as open a filter. If you look at my other mode comparisons, you'll see the Model D is brighter than the Voyager, which is brighter than the Sub 37. And I wonder whether what they've modelled the Diva on has had a slightly duller filter than most Model Ds. And the reason I'm thinking that is Diva's really praised for its filters. Also looking at my Pro 1 versus the Repro 1, they do the filters so well on that, and that's a really bright, buzzy filter. So UHE or UHE, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, tend to be good at this sort of stuff. So there's got to be a reason behind this. I'm giving them benefit of the doubt, really, because of the quality of their other stuff. Anyway, let's have a listen to the start of that section again. Sounding like a sort of family of Model Ds really though, aren't they? MiniV's a lot softer. Diva's great. Monark would be good if it wasn't for the funny buzzing. Minimonsta just hasn't got that bite. And Legend does. And just a quick listen to the end of that section. Again, that's a bit too soft. And Minimonsta's too soft, so really it's between the Diva, the Legend and the Monarch. Monarch's got that funny little buzzing, so it's between Diva and Legend here. And I can't really choose between them, so let's listen to something more musical. So here we have two saws. The second is tuned to a fourth above the first. They've got some decay on them, some release, but it's difficult to get them matched. I think on this, the Minimonsta is on like over a second and the other's on about 600 milliseconds. The Monarch's got that one for me. I think Monarch wins this battle, but just let's have a look at those levels with that Arturia once more. So there you go, there's 0.2 dB between those two. So yeah, it's really not about what the levels and what the meters say, it's about what you're hearing, and that really does depend on your monitors or your headphones, etc. So never going to be exactly the same. Legend is sounding really good. I like the Legend. Results for round 5 then. Legend and Diva come in first place. Minimonsta and MiniV come equal third place, and I've put Monarch at 5th. I know it did really well in the last test, but that funny buzzy noise, just can't get past that. Okay, here we are, round 6 on resonant harmonics, and this really shows how the filter does affect the overall tone of the synth. What I've done here then is I've tuned all the cutoffs to exactly the same frequency by turning off all the oscillators and setting the resonance on full, then setting the cutoff at around 12 o'clock, and then tuning that using the frequency analysis to around 1 kilohertz, then using my ears after that to tune them all so they're perfect. That way you can reduce the variables and you can hone in on a single aspect of the sound, in this case the resonant harmonics. So I'm just holding the note, cutoff's the same, and I'm just turning the resonance up until it becomes too much of a feature of the sound, and then turning it up and down around that value. And if you look at the frequency analysis, you'll see the self-resonance at 1 kilohertz makes more of a feature as the resonance becomes more of a feature of the sound as well. I think that's really close. The feel of that to the Model D is great. The way that resonance comes in is perfect. I'd get confused listening between those two. Now that's completely different, and I'm really surprised by that. Obviously it depends on what Model D you're modelling it on, but you know, this was lauded as such a close emulation when it came out, you know, and it's still highly regarded, so that came as quite a surprise to me actually. Yeah, that doesn't sound as complex to me. Ooh, that's good. I'm amazed at that. That's exceptional, that is. Well, I had a bad start in this this review, the Legend, but the rest of it's been pretty bang on since then. Okay, but this may go to explain some of those differences. So here we have the frequency analysis again, and we can see on the Model D you've got a peak at 1, at 2 and at 3 kilohertz. The MiniV's got the one at 1, obviously, because that's where I've tuned it to, and only a very small one at 3. Diva's got one at 1, 2 and 3. Monarch's got one at 1, 2 and 3, but the 2's smaller, which is different to the Model D. Minimonsta's only got 1 and 3, and Legend's got 1, 2 and 3. So Diva and Legend, looking at these plots, you'd expect those to be the most similar, and lo and behold, they are. So let's have one final listen and pay particular attention to the resonance as it becomes sort of too overbearing in the sound. So Diva and Legend both sound really close, and they were the ones that had the 3 resonant peaks that were most like the Model Ds. These plots were less complex and sound less complex. I just wonder now if those are both showing their age. Arturia, they've had the MiniV's been out for a while now, and I just wonder if they've updated the GUI and the functionality, but they haven't actually looked at the algorithms and haven't really reanalyzed and gone into any more depth than that. And G-Media, I think that was the very first one out, so maybe time for an update on those two. Well, the Monarch's not doing it for me with this one. That just doesn't sound similar to the rest of them, which is a surprise, as I say. So in that case, I'm going to put at the top spot on this round, we're going to have Diva and Legend, because they're pretty much indistinguishable. Close your eyes and flip from file to file. They're really, really close. So it's the 3Ms in third, the MiniV, the Monarch and the Minimonsta. They just don't sound like my hardware. I'm not going to put one above the other because they just sound different. Here we go, round 7. Let's look at some frequency modulation. The Model D is really good at doing clangy bell type noises, so let's see how the virtual analogues cope with these. I'm not going to spend too long on this. I could easily spend hours doing just this alone. So let's have a look how the Diva copes. It's set up differently on the Diva to the Model D, but apart from that, it sounds okay. It sounds like FM, but doesn't sound like the Model D. Again, like the Diva, it's a fair approximation, but neither of them are as crispy as the Model D. All much for muchness so far. They all do the job. They're not brilliant, but you know, it's FM. I can't really explain why. Maybe it sounds the same on this demo, but while I've been playing with it, it's got more of a feel of the Model D. None of them emulate it exactly. None of them are as crispy, but this, to me, playing with it, this is the best. I've edited this down from about an hour's worth of footage, so taking that into consideration, Minimonsta's doing really well. Maybe I should have used those really massive GUIs that these come with rather than zooming in on these small images. Anyway, this one's not really doing it for me. So results in for round 7. This was quite an easy one for me actually. Minimonsta was the clear winner, and that's just, as I say, through messing about and playing with it for you know, for half an hour or so. Legend, Monark and Diva all in 3rd place. Sound-wise, it didn't feel like there was a lot in it between them. Diva's slightly different in that it uses oscillator 1 to modulate 2 and 3, and the others use 3 to modulate 2 and 1, like the Model D does itself. And MiniV3, it felt really bland, and so that was a bit of a letdown, honestly. I mean, I've always liked playing with the Arturia stuff, but never really investigated them more than just having a play around with them. Ding ding, final round 8. So let's have a look at the feedback and overdrive circuits here. The new Model D's got the circuit built in, as do all the virtual analogues. I think overdrive of this type is particularly difficult to program, so be interested to see which one comes out on top here. You can hear a really massive change in tone there. The other thing it does is it's a brilliant resonance killer. Which makes for a really simple test to see if the virtuals are doing the same job. So first up, let's have a look at the Arturia MiniV3. Let's turn the volume down, see if that helps. No, it's either nothing or it's nasty, so that gets a big fat round 0 from me. So let's now have a look at Diva. Stays within limits, doesn't go as mental as the Minimoog does. It's not as rich as the Model D, maybe it's a bit harsher really, but it's definitely a usable overdrive. Although if I wanted that sort of sound, I'd probably use something else to overdrive it, you know, another plugin or something. So let's try the resonance trick. I didn't bother with the Arturia because, well, it was rubbish, wasn't it? Yep, that works. So next up, let's take a look at the Minimonsta. Yeah, that's impressive. That does what the Minimoog does. Maybe it doesn't do exactly the same, but you know, it's emulating the synth. The Monarch's got a sort of an overdrive and a feedback circuit. It's okay, bit bland, not doing much. Staying well within limits, it's not going crackers like the Model D did. It's okay, it doesn't really kill the feedback, but you know, it's sort of alright. FYI, you only get 30 minutes demo time with this. So I've had it on the studio computer, on the office laptop and on the studio laptop to get an hour and 30 minutes out of it in order to put this together. 30 minutes just isn't long enough to demo something. So the audio in this section's had to be bounced down from another laptop. Anyway, let's take a look at Legend now. Again, probably a good thing it doesn't emulate the madness of the hardware, but it keeps it in sensible limits. Like the Monark, it has a separate drive circuit. Yep, so it's both musical and usable. So how would I rate these? Similar to the FM actually, I'll put first place Minimonsta. It might not have sounded the best, but it acted the best. It felt a bit more like the Model D. None of them really sounded like the Model D. Second place I put Legend because it sounded so nice, but really second and third place between Monark and Diva, all much of a muchness, all quite nice. And fifth place we're going to put the Arturia. I like Arturia. I've got the Mini Brute, which I really love. I think it's a great little synth. I mean, I've got the V collection and I do play around with them. I do like them, but in this section, that just didn't do it for me. So overall, how would I rank these? When I set out to do this, I didn't really think about putting them in a ranking order, but as I was doing section by section, it sort of made sense to clear my thoughts and to put things in perspective. But I'm going to put Arturia and the G Media Minimonsta both well in fourth stroke fifth place. They're sort of even Stevens in that. I think they're both showing their age. I think the others have got slightly more complex modelling going on. So I do think the battle between second and third is between the Monark and Diva. Monark and Diva, they're both good. Diva's got that dull tone which sort of is a bit annoying, to be honest. Now I've noticed it. As I said, I didn't really notice that on my Voyager for years, but now I've noticed it. It's a difficult one, but I think I'd put Diva above Monark if I was going to reach out to play one in a track. Also, Monark sits within Reactor, which is a bit of a pain. So that leaves number one as the new kid on the block is Legend, which I was really impressed with. Never heard of it before about 2 weeks ago when I started to look at doing this. And yeah, it's come either top or almost at the top of every single round. Brilliant.